They said I was building castles in the air, but I wasn't. I was lifting my house. Not a house made of bricks, not walls or roofs, but a house built from dreams. Fragile, impossible dreams. Dreams too wild for the world I was born in. Dreams too big to fit inside normal. When I was a kid, people thought I was strange. I used to sit alone staring at the stars. Not because I was lonely, but because I believed there was something waiting out there. Every kid draws pictures. I drew rockets. Every kid played outside. I played inside my mind on a world I could build from zero. They laughed. They said, "You'll never get there." But I didn't want to get there. I wanted to make there. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew why. Because one day, the world will forget your name, but not your impact. And that was enough for me. When you live with dreams that scare people, you start building quietly. In your room, on your old computer, with the sound of your own heartbeat as your only applause. That's where my house began, in silence. My first bricks weren't metal or money. They were ideas, lines of code, pieces of vision. And every time I failed, I didn't fall. I just went down to the basement of that dream and rebuilt stronger. Because lifting your house doesn't start with strength. It starts with belief. Every dreamer reaches a breaking point. For me, it came when everything I built began to fall apart. I thought I had lifted my house high enough, but I didn't realize the higher you build, the stronger the storms become. After PayPal, I had money. I could have stopped there. Bought cars, islands, peace. But I didn't want comfort. I wanted purpose. So I took everything I earned and risked it. People called me insane. Why bet it all again? They said. Because I wasn't betting money. I was betting the future. SpaceX failed 3 times. 3 rockets, gone. Each one was a piece of my heart, burning in the sky. The world laughed. Headline said, "Elon Musk is finished. SpaceX is over." I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every night I lay awake, thinking about the engineers, the families, the dreams slipping through my hands. But in that silence, I remembered why I started. This wasn't about success. It was about survival, the survival of human hope. Tesla wasn't doing better. We were weeks away from bankruptcy. I had to choose. Save Tesla or save SpaceX. I chose both. I divided the last of my money, half to rockets, half to electric cars, because I'd rather fail for the future than win without one. People don't see the nights I cried in the factory, the times I slept on the floor, the times I pretended to be strong, when everything inside me was breaking. But maybe you don't truly lift your house until it collapses once, because only then you learn how to rebuild it from ashes. I still remember that day, the day everything I dreamed of finally touched the sky. When Falcon 1 made it to orbit, it wasn't just a rocket. It was proof that impossible things can fly. I didn't cheer. I didn't scream. I just stood there, watching fire turn into freedom. For years I had carried that weight. Every failure, every insult, every sleepless night. And in that moment, it all lifted. People said, "Elon, you did it." But it wasn't me. It was the hundreds who believed, the thousands who doubted, and the millions who watched and dared to believe again. Because every dream that lifts others with it. When I looked at that rocket cutting through the clouds, I saw more than fire and metal. I saw her. The dream. The same dream that once whispered to a kid in South Africa, "Look up." She was rising now. Through smoke, through fear, through time. And I realized, I never built rockets to escape Earth. I built them to remind us that we can rise no matter how heavy life becomes. That's what lifting your house means. It's not about rockets or cars or companies. It's about refusing to stay on the ground when you were born to fly. The world called me crazy. Maybe they were right. Because it takes a little madness to see beyond gravity, to believe that humanity deserves more than limits. That day, I didn't just lift my house, I lifted every dreamer, whoever stared at the sky and whispered, "Maybe I can too." Success is never the calm after the storm. It is the storm itself. When Falcon 1 soared, the world cheered. Investors smiled. Headlines celebrated. But behind every triumph lies pressure, expectation, and doubt, clouds thicker than any I had faced on the ground. I learned quickly. Rockets are heavy. Dreams are heavier, and the higher you climb, the colder the air. Emails poured in. Demands piled up. Critics whispered, "He'll fail again." And even friends hesitated. Because rising is easy in imagination, but terrifying in reality. Every new launch, every new goal, felt like walking a tightrope above an ocean of mistakes. One slip, and the world would laugh. Yet, in those moments, I remembered why I started. Not for fame, not for money, not for approval, but for her. The dream that first whispered to a kid in South Africa, "Look up, you can fly." I held on to that, even when the storm roared louder than my courage, even when failure seemed inevitable, even when the world said, "Stop." Because storms don't last forever, but dreams do. And so I climbed higher, faster, harder, because lifting your house isn't just about reaching the sky. It's about holding on when the sky wants to fall. Every flight carries fire, not just in engines, but in the heart. Falcon 9 wasn't just a rocket. It was a challenge to everything I had learned, everything I had risked, everything I had feared. One mistake could destroy it all. One error, and the dream would crash. I remember staring at the launch pad, feeling the heat from the engines before they even fired. This wasn't fear. This was respect. Respect for the power we were about to unleash. And as the flames roared, the rocket lifted, I realized something. The fire isn't the enemy. It's the reminder that what's worth doing is worth burning for. People often think success comes quietly. It doesn't. It screams. It tests you. It pushes you past limits you didn't even know existed. And in that roar of engines, in that blinding light, I saw her again, the dream. Not just mine. Everyone's who had ever looked up and whispered, "Maybe I can too." Because fire and flight are inseparable. You cannot soar without risk. You cannot rise without facing what terrifies you most. And in that moment, I understood. The higher we lift, the harder the winds will push back. But the view from above is always worth it.